Okay, April 24th. Quick look at the Stoxx 50 post the close. AB and Bev, nothing much, still in this range. Gets above 60, definitely interesting. Probably below this area at 53, also interesting because it will most likely fade back to 50 or 49, but nothing much happening at the moment. A-hole's going to be next. I think this is getting slightly more interesting. The sector reasonably strong in terms of Walmart and Costco. Big little pivot here at 28, 30-ish. So look, it's trying to improve. The relative's got a bit better. I'd say, again, if it can get above this area, there is room, but it needs to do it. Don't think you need to be ahead of it. Adidas has made the break. Good follow through. Probably a little bit extended just on this sort of 3 or 4 day move, but you can see again the relative has kind of kicked into gear and looks like it can certainly try to go higher, and I would think it will outperform relative from a near term perspective. Adian, I think this is fading, but it's just so difficult to get right, and I think there's just so much two-way price action that it's a real struggle to engage with. This is still a big move up, which would put the kind of bulls in control, but we had marked this out here as this sort of area is going to be a big challenge. Arguably a better setup now with a little bit of a pullback for maybe a reset and a push back up, but given how tricky tech has been, I just don't know if it's one that the risk reward is in your favour, and it's just best watched. Air Liquide, would like to see this over the next day or two to see can it reset. Obviously disappointing post numbers, but it's still held this low, which is around 185. Great long term name. It's still kind of just working this off. So I think if that was to kind of just hold around here, would be encouraging. If not, you're sort of probably coming back into this area, and it's still going to be fine in that area, but just a bit messier and harder to be convicted on. So ideally it sort of holds up short term. Airbus, better reaction. Now Boeing was very weak tonight, so whether that knocks it or helps it will be interesting. Would still be very big on that pair between the two of them, even though it's kind of got into really extended territory. I just feel that the Boeing challenges are going to last a lot longer, and Airbus has been the cleaner of the two, and I think that spread will continue to expand. Allianz, good reset post numbers, holding up well. It still looks like it wants to go higher, and this relative would be probably the one that we'd be paying most attention to now as to whether or not this can build and go again. ASML, look, just in the penalty box, flawless until this breaks, but still in the context of where it's come from, it's not clean, and it's not, I don't think it's actionable here, but you'd like it to just rebuild in this zone, and again we expect that this goes higher in time, but it's at a big move, and probably just consolidating some of that here. BASF, nothing to say, don't particularly like it, but could break higher. Bayern, nothing to say, just really poor. BBVA, probably reset well, but it still hasn't got above the high. Others, as we'll see when we go a bit further, have already got there, so you would kind of just mark it down slightly for that, but banks remain strong. I think the autos are going to be in play. We'll see Mercedes later on. Ford, good numbers tonight. The stock's up after hours, so potentially it's a fresh catalyst for these, and obviously the Tesla numbers today were good too. Sorry, the reaction was good. So these are pretty close to some big levels. 115 is going to be huge. Let's see if it gets above it. Danone, good reset off the moving average. maybe it can work its way back up towards the 65. Staples generally have acted better, so potentially it can. Just never a name that's easy to trust, but it, at the very least, it's acting really well technically. Big spike up here, couldn't hold it, broke down, but held where it should. So potentially now it's in a spot to get going again, which would be quite interesting if it does. BNP, pretty strong. Above this area, it's coming into numbers, so it'll be a big ask to kick on, but well positioned. Good formation. Be very disappointing if it didn't at least consolidate here, and so strong. And I think it's ahead of BBVA on a like for like. AXA, same as Allianz. If we can ride out this little bit of volatility in the market, you would imagine that these will be very well primed to extend once that phase completes, assuming it's just a phase. So it looks solid. Deutsche Börse, disappointed with this one because certainly felt like it had all the potential to go the other direction. Relative is a bit weak, but just kind of still only coming back towards this moving average, and maybe it's just a little bit of a head fake reversal, but look, I think you have to watch it just for now, unfortunately. Vinci, something similar, into that tricky spot where this is exactly where you would expect it to hold, but you don't really want it down there once it gets there. So well supported around here, but needs now to see some sort of reversal type price action to get you engaged once more. DHL still looks like this is going to go lower, probably gets down to the bottom end of this range. FedEx weak again today. Just think these are drifting, and unless you get something to kind of reverse that short-term trend, it's hard to see how it doesn't work lower, so it still remain negative on that. Deutsche Telekom, no real strong view on this. Probably we should, but it's just too boring. Essilor, I think this still holds up well. I really like this candle, which it has reversed off with a bit of power. That was numbers. It's extended, it's got above here, it's held up for 2 days, and it's moved away from this. So I think as long as it's holding above 200, the bias is that this could really hold up and go for another leg. And again, it's been in a very strong trend, so still think that's one to be patient on. 200's your big level. The longer it can hold up above that, the better. Good to see some buying. NL trying to work higher, but messy, and nothing clear just yet. E&I very, very tight. We'll start to see some numbers from the majors soon. That's really playing with this level. Big reversal candle today, but we'll see if it can work that off again tomorrow. But this will be the kind of, if we look at it just in this move, 1, 2, 3, 4 kind of goes at getting above this area. So would be very keen to see if it can get above this 1575 and make a push. Lots of room if it can, and still looks well positioned overall. Iberdrola, good reset, relative acts well, so definitely you can see there's some defensiveness creeping in for something like that, and indeed some of the staples. Infineon, move today is good, but hard to trust this still. Maybe it hangs in, and this is another test of this trend line, and we eventually resolve up here, but would still worry that, look, as the sector gets a little bit trickier, it looks vulnerable, and it definitely looks vulnerable if it's anywhere below this area, below probably 29, maybe 30. So yeah, very difficult to be convicted on that. And again, I think you'd rather be trying to have a ASML to play that trade than Infineon. ING, this is the divvy, so the chart looks a little bit messy until that corrects. Again, earnings coming up. I think like the bank's charts all look pretty good. The US charts look excellent, but the bar is high for them, and they will need to be perfect for earnings to get another go. Intesa, that's potentially the template for some of the better ones. Pull back and rallied, so strong, hard to chase it, but a great performance. Inditex, good reset, still the best name in retail. ABF, to be fair, pretty strong. Karing, again, just like what a disaster. Now, in saying that, now that we have the information of that it's had its numbers, like that's very important, and we, this little candle from today where they pushed it lower, held it, and it closed okay. We'll see how that works its way out, because we could, got to be, conscious that you could get this type of reaction, and it's important. But as of now, you've just got to see day by day, is there any sort of reversal candles building, and that might engage you. But as of yet, I'd say it's been a good one to just avoid. Mercedes, I think if autos are going to go and the US ones are stronger, this is the best positioned one of the big ones in Europe, just because it's so close to this area that if one of them is going to get a push, I think it'll be Mercedes. LVMH, I just think it's completely out of play. I don't think it's a disaster. I don't think it's brilliant. It's just out of play. Essilor definitely has more technical positives about it. So for staying in that space, I think it's the one I'd still veer to. LVMH looks like a reasonable placeholder. Munich Re, positive, good reset. See if it can work higher. And generally you can see the insurance names are all broadly similar. Nordea, this looked like it could break either way. Good reset. So, the bias is that it will keep going. Not the cleanest bank setup, but solid. Nokia, to be fair, we haven't liked this, never liked it, but this is decent in terms of, they had to go pushing it back. They've rallied it back up, and not perfect, but you certainly have a very clear little pivot here at 355, and we have already had a look at it. I think it's probably going to be hard to do it in a tricky market, but if that was to get above 355, like realistically, you've got 4 as the next target. So as much as we probably don't pay much attention to it, it's definitely one to keep maybe a closer eye on, just from a short-term perspective. L'Oreal, again, I think this is really just in a holding period. It looks very strong, but it probably needs some help from the market to get it above this 460 and into new upside territory. You would think it will happen. This looks like a good reset. The gap, is good right into the highs. Looks very close to another little move. So it to me looks very strong, but just is a bit of a waiting game in terms of when you might get that next move. Prosus, now this is one that we do think is interesting. If you go back over the old videos, not that anyone is going to do that, you can, we've kind of talked about this. Look, it's been out of play. It's been messy, but you can see here, like, we have got out of this channel for the first time since 2023. If you look at some of the other Chinese, proxies, they've improved, and this could just be potentially into a spot where you're into better price action, and you at least have some good levels to kind of pitch against. And that sort of 28 area, if you're above that, or if you're above 30, I think it's probably just more interesting now than it has been for quite some time. Race, very solid, not particularly exciting, but just keeps going up. Perno, probably a stretch to be saying this is a double bottom here, potentially, but we won't know for a while. Relative has improved, but still below this kind of downward sloping moving average, so hard to get overly excited, but again, we're sort of just keeping a closer eye on it now that there's a bit more price discovery. Hermes, again, it's better than LVMH. It's been forever better than LVMH. The relative is stronger, and continues to work higher, which is positive. But again, a bit like the L'Oreal, I think it's going to need the market. Saffron, superb. This is held in better than almost any other stock in Europe so far, in terms of this. Now let's see if it can go and make the new high. Looks close. So very strong. Arguably the challenge is it's not particularly timely for a fresh look, but nonetheless, Sanofi, potentially this is a reversal candle, the first one we've seen, but the setup is just too messy to bother with. We're still in this kind of holding pattern where it just could go either way. Wouldn't have strong conviction at all on which way the break will be. Banco Santander, very strong, above the highs, better than BBVA on a like for like, just in terms of where they are price action wise. So strong. So SAP, again, I think the reaction to numbers was good, but it would just probably be slightly disappointing that it didn't gap a bit further, or didn't, I guess, clear any of these levels. Maybe it will do in time, but I think it's going to just, tech more generally just feels like it just needs to sit tight for a little while, assuming this can sort of hold. I would think as long as this can hold above sort of 170 and build in this area, the next move will be, an extension out of it, but it's just very tricky to engage with here. But again, we'll see. Saint-Gobain, acts well, popped up, good support, kind of coming back in, but overall doing it, above the moving averages and above a big block of long-term support, so you've got to be optimistic. Siemens, I think this acted pretty well. We'll see if it can pop this direction. If it does, then I think you're following it, because it'll keep going. As we said before, these haven't been phenomenal trenders over time, but so you can't stay with them forever, but it probably still looks early. Stellantis was the first of the autos to kind of really improve, and now it's kind of, I guess maybe we've borrowed some of the gains, because it seems to be pulling back. I'd probably have Mercedes if for choice. Schneider, I would still say, is the strongest industrial, but kind of getting a little bit ragged here as we're trying to get out of this little range. That's now February to wherever we are, April, so it's it's taking a bit of time. It's pretty simple. If it gets above 220, I think it keeps going. So we just have to be patient and see if that develops, but it's strong. Total, we marked this out, and wow, was that an almost perfect reset. So you would think that this trend is, potentially still very early in its development. It'll take some time to kind of really find its feet, but we expect this goes higher. UniCredit, still no major sellers. Volkswagen, again, I put this in the kind of somewhat frustrating camp. Reasons to be positive in terms of this pop is good. It got to a new high. I think it's come back more than you would like in terms of the retracement, but still holds above this sort of 120 area. We'll see tomorrow if kind of the forward numbers overnight gives a little bit of a bid to the sector. If it does, then I think you might see it start to work higher, and that would be positive. So fine, and I think the longer term it looks interesting, but just is a bit frustrating how slow it is to get moving. and Walter's Clever is still very strong. So overall, I think, look, some interesting things to play for there, and I guess we're watching, can some of those autos potentially move on the back of the numbers tonight. What else sort of pops out from the crowd as to where the leadership might come, and things like Schneider look very interesting in that regard, to see if they can continue to extend. And I guess more generally, it's probably, you're seeing a little bit of defensives creeping in to being a bit stronger, which makes sense. But no, like, even the names that have retraced, like say an ASML, like it's a pullback. I wouldn't say there's too much kind of carnage in it yet. So you'd still be giving a lot of those the benefit of the doubt that eventually we'll kind of find new footings and kick on.